broadcast. So ooh, that's fancy. I haven't heard that in a while. All right. So welcome in, everyone. My name is Jesse. I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, as you guys all know. If you're joining us for the first time as students, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. We are on program number, I think, 18 this month. We've got 35 coming in the next couple of weeks. And to kick it off today, we are having a very, very fun program for the very first time with Lauren Esposito. So she has the coolest title in the world. You're the chair of arachnology, is that correct? Like the
That's
best
correct.
title in the history of the world. So I'm so excited today. In our history, we have done programs on bears, on lions, on, lions, oh my. Geez, we've got sharks, crocodiles, all sorts of great stuff, but we have never done one on scorpions. And so I'm so excited to dive in today with the most fascinating creature you never wanted to meet. In fact, there's been scorpions in the news recently in Egypt in a not so positive way, but some very exciting stuff. We're going to dive in, learn a lot about this really cool creature, and then dive in with an awesome Q&A as always. So Lauren, if you want to unmute your mic, I'll spotlight you and you can take us away. We are good to go. Thank you so much for joining.
All right, great. Thanks so much for the introduction. And I think that I have a pretty exciting title of my job, Curator of Arachnology. But I want to tell you about what that actually means and about the animals that I'm most excited about in the world and what I spend my life studying, which is scorpions. So if you've never seen a scorpion before, what you see up on the screen right now, this blue looking animal right in the middle of the screen is a scorpion. All scorpions fluoresce under ultraviolet light, which is a UV light, kind of looks purple when you shine it. And for some reason, scientists don't know exactly why all scorpions fluoresce under ultraviolet light, and they look kind of like this. They look blue or green and really, really bright colored, sort of like toxic sludge. And it helps us find them at night, which is really great for scientists that are trying to study these nocturnal animals. So if you're asking yourself how many scorpions are there in the world, the answer is that there's about 2,400 different species of scorpions in the world, which is a lot. But I think the thing that I love the most about scorpions is that they've been on Earth for over 430 million years, which is a really, really long time. That means that they've been around since before the dinosaurs. They've been around since before there were flowers. They've been around since before there were plants growing on Earth, like trees. They've been living on Earth for a really, really long time. And in all that time, they've changed in all sorts of ways. So here's just a little snapshot of all the diversity of scorpions that we see. So obviously I can't fit 2,400 different kinds of scorpions up here on the screen, but here's about 100 different kinds for you. And you can see that they come in different sizes and shapes and colors. And all of those are attributes that help them to live in and exist in their environments. So scorpions that are living in really shadowy jungles or like tropical rainforests might be black or dark brown. And scorpions that are living in pale colored sand dunes in the desert might be like a light yellow color. And they come in all different sizes. Some of them are really small, like the size of your thumbnail. And other ones are really big, like bigger than the length of your hand. And each of them is doing something really important in the ecosystem that we'll talk about in just a minute. This is a map of the world. And what you can see in green is all the places that you can find scorpions. So if you ever thought that you could only find scorpions in like the desert, you're absolutely wrong. You can find scorpions almost everywhere, except for parts of the Earth where it freezes for really long periods of the year. So scorpions don't like to be cold. They can't produce their own heat. They rely on their environment to make heat. And when they get too cold, they can't move anymore, which means that they can't eat. And it makes it really hard to live. So places in the world where it freezes for long parts of the year, the ground is frozen, there's snow, you can't find scorpions. But everywhere else you can find scorpions. And that means you can find scorpions in caves. You can find scorpions up in the really, really high mountains like the Himalayas or the Andes in South America. You can find scorpions in the Sierra Nevadas here in the United States. We just found scorpions at 8,000 feet above sea level a few weeks ago, which is pretty high, pretty cold. There was actually snow on the ground, but it was melting, so it wasn't frozen, and we were still able to find some scorpions. So scorpions are really found everywhere in the world. And they've been around for a really long time. So I mentioned that scorpions have been around for about 430 million years. And before modern scorpions, the scorpions that we see on Earth today, scorpions had ancestors that lived in the ocean. And there you can see up in the top corner, there's an outline of a person, of an adult human. And you can see just how big scorpions used to be. That's a scorpion to scale sitting on the ground right next to it in the kind of gray shadow. And they were big. And this is a species of scorpion called Bronto Scorpio. It was a pretty large scorpion, but not the biggest ancestor of scorpions, which I'll show you in just a minute. And if any of you are from New York State or you've been to New York State, you can find these fossils pretty commonly. They're called sea scorpions or eurypterids, and it's the state fossil of New York State. And in some cases, they were really big. They were as big as an adult human. And so here's a little video. This is a recreation of scorpions that lived in the ocean. So the ancestors of modern scorpions. So here you can see this predator. It's chasing a fish, trying to get a meal. And it's huge. It was that one that I showed you in the picture before, standing next to that person, like the size of a dog, maybe. And as this little scorpion, well, not so little, moves through the ocean floor, walking on its legs, something erupts out of the ocean and eats it because it wasn't the top predator. The top predator of the time was an even bigger sea scorpion. This was a eurypterid, and this is the largest sea scorpion that we know of. It was probably about the size of a grizzly bear today, huge. And we think that probably what happened when these animals started coming out of the ocean and into the land was that they were coming to eat things like fish that were spawning up rivers. So how many of you have seen a video of a grizzly bear eating salmon as the salmon swim upstream to spawn? Yeah, we've seen videos on TV probably of those salmon coming upstream, and the grizzly bears just stand in the middle of the river and they start grabbing the salmon out. Well, we think that these ancestors of modern scorpions were doing the same thing. They were standing in the rivers and they were eating the spawning fish because they were like the size of a grizzly. And then slowly over time, they started to move onto land and begin to eat the things that were living on land. But let's talk a little bit about what a scorpion is. Like, what makes a scorpion a scorpion? So first, all scorpions, because they're arachnids, have 8 legs. Other arachnids are things like spiders. Spiders are also arachnids and they have 8 legs. So you can see there's 8 legs here on this scorpion. And all scorpions have something called tarsal claws. Those are claws at the end of their foot. Here's a picture of a scorpion foot. And you can see it has 2 little claws like this at the end. And it uses those claws for holding on and grabbing into the ground, kind of like if you've ever worn a soccer cleat, those claws are kind of doing the same thing. They also have claws on their hands. They have these hands up front with 2 claws that they use for pinching and grabbing things. And they have a stinger at the end of their tail. So those are the things that make a scorpion in a nutshell. And they use the stinger and the claws for capturing prey and for defending themselves against predators. So while scorpions are predators, they eat other animals. They're also prey for a lot of other things, like there's some snakes that eat scorpions. There are some weasels that eat scorpions. There's some bats that eat scorpions. There's some birds that eat scorpions. Basically, if anything can get its hands on a scorpion, it's a really tasty and nutritious snack. It would probably even be a tasty and nutritious snack for you. And there are some humans that eat scorpions as well. And there's really kind of 2 big major kinds of scorpions. There's scorpions like this one, which has really, really big claws up in the front and not a very big tail. The tail's kind of small. It's only about the length of the rest of its body. Or there's scorpions like this one, which have really kind of dainty little claws. Their claws are small. They're not very big and meaty. It doesn't look as much like a lobster. And they've got this really long kind of muscular tail. And the reason for that is because scorpions use 2 different ways to capture prey. Scorpions like this one use mostly venom to capture prey. So they use their stinger to sting prey, and that's how they make it like stop moving so that they can eat it. And they inject venom into it. And the venom has things called that interrupt something that we have called neurotransmitters. So their venom basically stops the animals from moving. And that's what it does, is it prevents their nerves from talking to each other. So in our bodies, we have nerve cells. And every time a nerve cell ends and it needs to send a signal up to your brain, it has to talk to the nerve next to it. It has to talk to its neighbor and tell it to keep passing the signal along. It's kind of like if you've ever tried to pass a secret. You whisper into the next person's ear and they whisper into the next person's ear. Your nerves do the same thing, but these neurotoxins in scorpions interrupt that signal. So it would be like if there was really loud music playing and you were still trying to whisper in somebody's ear, you wouldn't be able to get your message across. And that prevents the animals from doing normal things like moving and allows the scorpions to capture and eat them. Other scorpions with big meaty claws, they don't really need to use their venom because their claws are so big and strong that when they grab onto something, they can just crush it and then go ahead and eat it. So that's the venomous kind, and that's the meaty claws kind. And when scorpions do have toxic venom, actually all scorpions have venom, and it lives inside the end of their tail. So this is a picture, a cross section. So if we cut the tail in half and looked at it, and you can see here in blue is a gland. A gland is a type of tissue in your body that is made up of cells and produces chemicals. And sometimes those chemicals are like to make your saliva, for example. You have salivary glands that help you make saliva. But scorpions have venom glands that help make their venom. And so they have that right at the end of their tail. And in green, surrounding the blue, is a muscle. And that muscle is used to squeeze the gland to eject the venom out. And then the venom comes out through the end of their tail, through their sting. And the sting kind of looks like a hypodermic needle if you look at it up close. There's a little hole right at the end of it in this picture up on the top right. And the venom that sting is pushed into the body of the animal or the predator that is trying to eat them, or the thing they're trying to eat, and then they eject the venom, kind of like when you get a flu shot. Also, all scorpions have two major body parts. They have the prosoma, which is the head, and they have the opistosoma, which is the rest of the body. And just like their cousin spiders, who also have a prosoma and an opistosoma, this is one of the main ways that you identify arachnids. So the group that includes scorpions and spiders, 2 major body parts and 8 legs. What's really important to remember, especially if you're ever drawing a picture of a scorpion or a spider, is that their legs come out of their head, not their body, which is kind of weird. Their body is where they breathe, where they store their eggs, where they reproduce, where their stomach is, and their head is where their legs are. Kind of the opposite of us, I guess. Scorpions also have eyes. So if you were wondering how they see their environment and the world around them, they have eyes. They actually have 3 sets of eyes. They have 2 up in the front of their head that are kind of smaller, and right in the middle of their head, they have another set. And altogether, the eyes kind of form a triangular shape. And this is kind of what their eyes look like up close. You can see here's a close-up of a scorpion eye, and you can see it has sort of an iris right in the middle that helps them to sense light. Most scorpions have the central eyes kind of set up like this one does, so that they can see out into their environment. Whereas the eyes up on the front of the head kind of more look up into the sky. And there's a really good reason for that. I don't know how many of you have ever been in a car or maybe looked at a cell phone that has a map on it. And as your car moves or as you move, you can see that your little dot on that map is moving around. And the way that we know that, the way that our phone knows where we are, is it uses this method called triangulation, right? That's a fancy word for looking up into the sky and finding 3 different cell towers or satellites and calculating where you are as in the middle of those. That's the idea of triangulation. Well, scorpions use triangulation too. They have those 3 sets of eyes, and they use those 3 sets of eyes to look up into the sky at night. They're nocturnal animals, so they come out at night and they look at the stars. And when they see the stars, they can, because they have these 3 sets of eyes, they can triangulate their position based on where the stars are. And when they move through the night, through their environment at night, they can figure out if they're walking towards home or away from home, just based on their ability to look up at the stars. So scorpions are able to navigate by starlight. So I mentioned that scorpions are nocturnal animals, which means that they mostly come out at night. And we know that scorpions like to come out on nights where there's no moon. So if the moon is rising really late in the night, they'll come out early in the night. Or if it's a night where the moon isn't full, where it's a new moon, They tend to be more active. And that's because first they're able to see the stars better. When the moon is really, really bright, you can't see the stars as well. It obscures the starlight. But when it's a moonless night, if you ever go out on a moonless night, if you're an astronomer, you would know that that's the best stargazing because it's really, really dark and the stars are really extra bright. So scorpions like to come out on moonless nights. And one of the reasons that they're out at night is that they're hunting. And they're hunting for prey. And the thing that they mostly eat is insects. So here's some of the insects that they might encounter at night. They encounter crickets, beetles, and especially moths flying around at night. So they're also eating other nocturnal animals mostly out at night. And similarly, their predators are also nocturnal. So bats, which are nocturnal, come out at night and eat scorpions. Mongooses come out at night and eat scorpions. And other things that might eat scorpions are just lucky enough to find one. So they're out during the day and looking under rocks and stones and things like that, where scorpions might be hiding during the day. So here's a little video. This is a video that's shot under ultraviolet light of some scorpions. And here what you can see is two scorpions. They're facing each other. And you might think that they're fighting, right? Like they're looking at each other. They're starting to push each other around. What they're actually doing is mating. And all scorpions engage in a courtship ritual. So they court each other, where the male approaches the female and he sends a signal to her that he's a scorpion, so she doesn't need to be afraid. And he does that by vibrating his legs. And that tells her that he's a scorpion. And then he grabs onto her claws. You can see he's grabbing onto her claws here. They're facing each other face to face. And he leads her in a dance. They dance around together holding hands. And they also kiss. Scorpions kiss. That's kind of strange to imagine another animal kissing, I think. But just like dogs might lick each other or cats will groom each other, scorpions kiss by clutching each other's mouth parts. So they have mouth parts right in the middle of their head that they're grabbing. And they continue this dance until the male deposits a stalk onto the ground, and the female can decide whether or not he was a good dancer. And if he was a good dancer, then she can decide that she wants him to be the father of her offspring, of her babies. And when scorpions have babies, they're very unusual because scorpions do not lay eggs. So basically all other arachnids, all spiders and all insects lay eggs. They don't give birth to live babies like humans do. They lay eggs, and scorpions, on the other hand, give birth to live young. So here we're looking at the belly of a scorpion. You can see those two kind of comb-looking structures that are moving around. Those are structures that scorpions use for sensory. They sense their environment with that. They're able to smell with those combs. And right between them is the birth canal for scorpions. And you can see coming out of the birth canal is a baby scorpion. This scorpion is giving birth. Once scorpions become pregnant, they're usually pregnant for about 9 months, just like humans. But they aren't pregnant with just 1 or 2 babies. They're pregnant with up to 120 babies. And as the scorpions as she gives birth to these baby scorpions, we call them scorpionlings. They are still covered in an amniotic sac. So humans are also covered in an amniotic sac when we're born. And they'll pop that little amniotic sac. And then the mom's not done with them. She's actually a really, really caring mom. She gives birth to her babies, and then the babies climb up onto her back, and she keeps them up there and keeps them safe, usually for about a month, but sometimes longer. Sometimes they start moving off of her back and they'll still live inside of her burrow in the ground where she lives. And she cares for them that way. She keeps them up on her back, caring for them for some period of time. And so scorpions are not like fierce, scary predators. They're not out to get each other, although they do eat each other sometimes. But rather, they're pretty caring animals that dance when they court and give birth to live babies that they care for after they're born. So I want to talk to you about the one scorpion. So we have a lot of scorpions in the United States, like many, many species, especially where I am in California. It's one of the hot spots of the world for scorpion diversity. And what that means is there's more species that are unique to California than there are to other comparable areas of geography in the world. But in the United States, of all the scorpions we have, and I think we have something like 60 some odd scorpion species in the United States, there's only one that's potentially harmful to humans. It's the Arizona bark scorpion. All the rest of them, they can sting you because they all have a stinger. They could even inject venom into you because they all have venom, but the venom is not harmful to humans except for this one. And it will generally hurt. It will feel like a bee sting or a wasp sting. And so it hurts. Getting stung by a bee is never fun, just like getting stung by a scorpion. But if you get stung by the Arizona bark scorpion, you might need to seek out medical care. And there's a reason that the Arizona bark scorpion is really dangerous to humans. And it's not because they want to kill humans. It's actually because of this guy right here. This is the southern grasshopper mouse. And the southern grasshopper mouse is a mouse, a little tiny mouse that lives in the same area as the Arizona bark scorpion. They live down in Arizona and in the deserts in the southwestern United States and northwestern Mexico. And the southern grasshopper mouse, Onychomys torridis, is a predator. So I don't know how many of you knew that mice are predators and pretty fearsome predators, in fact. And I'm going to show you a little video of this grasshopper mouse eating a scorpion in just a second. But the Arizona bark scorpion and the southern grasshopper mouse have evolved alongside each other for thousands and thousands of years. And during that time, the southern grasshopper mouse developed immunity to the scorpion venom. It evolved immunity so that it wasn't harmed by the venom of the scorpion. And the scorpion, in response, evolved more and more toxic venom that could eventually kill a human. And that's because this grasshopper mouse is immune to it, and it's trying to defend itself from the most fearsome predator in the desert, the southern grasshopper mouse. And just to give you an idea of where these things live, this is me standing right where you can find both of these animals in the Arizona desert, just outside of Phoenix. You can find them throughout all of Arizona. And see, it's a really rough and harsh ecosystem, right? It's dry. There's cactuses that are full of spines, and it's here where these two really fearsome animals, the Arizona bark scorpion and the southern grasshopper mouse, thrive. So here's a video of the southern grasshopper mouse eating a scorpion. And you can see that scorpion stinging that mouse. The mouse is not afraid. You can see it hurts. He jumps away, he's scratching his face. He's like, ouch. When they do this digging behavior, it's kind of like a sign that it's painful, but he doesn't care. He goes back for more, and eventually he just destroys that poor little scorpion. And what happens when the southern grasshopper mouse gets stung by the Arizona bark scorpion is that it causes a reaction in the immune system of the mouse, where the mouse takes this poison that should be really painful, and it converts it into a painkiller, like taking an Advil or a Tylenol. And so then when the scorpion stings the mouse right in the face, the mouse doesn't care because it can't feel pain anymore. And so here's another video. You can see he gets stung, it hurts. The first time it hurts, but then his immune system starts to kick in, produces all these painkillers that are starting to have its effect on its nervous system. The pain goes away and he can resume his attack. And this time when he gets stung, he just doesn't even care about it. So these fearsome predators are I would say, the kings of the desert. And in fact, they howl just like wolves. And they howl to defend their territory. So here's a little video of that southern grasshopper mouse howling. And they come out on the full moon and they howl at the moon and then go and eat scorpions. All right, so I just want to say thank you all so much for listening to my presentation today. I hope that you are now a little bit happier that you have met scorpions and learned about scorpions. If you're ever in a place where there's scorpions, you don't need to be afraid. You can look at them from a safe distance. They can't jump. They're not going to attack you. And they're a really important part of the ecosystem and keeping the ecosystem in balance. And I'm happy to answer questions.
That was fantastic. Everyone in their life should be as passionate about something as you are about scorpions. My face hurts from smiling in wonderment of all the things I've learned. I've never seen a scorpion eye. I never knew they lived up in mountain ranges. Like, this is super cool. The blacklight thing is the coolest. I first heard about this with the idea that like there's many more of them than you'd ever hope to know. You walk around with a blacklight in a desert, which I'm sure you've had the opportunity to do, which is so cool. Oh, the howling nose just made it. Okay. Guys, we're going to dive in with questions. Again, a huge thank you to all our classes joining us last minute on Zoom. We've got groups joining us in BC, Alberta, Ontario, Utah. It's really exciting to welcome into all our classes around North America. And yeah, let's head to Mr. Shattuck's class. If you guys want to unmute your mic, it's been so long since I've used Zoom for this, but you should be good. Joining us in Chalk River, Ontario. Go for it if you have a question, guys.
What is your favorite scorpion?
Ooh, no pressure.
Ooh, that's a good question. So my favorite scorpion, I actually have a picture of it right here in this presentation. I'll find it and show it to you. So my favorite scorpion at the moment, which I feel like I always have different favorites, but my favorite scorpion at the moment is this scorpion right here. It is called the Western Forest Scorpion. Oops, that is not the Western Forest Scorpion.
One of those scorpions, you know, it's a good problem to have when you have so many scorpions. You have to like.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So the Western Forest Scorpion is a scorpion that is found in forests all over California, Oregon, and Washington states in the United States. Actually, it gets up over the Canadian border in BC, and it's found only in forests. And I really think it's a super fascinating scorpion. When you are in forests that are healthy forests, you find them in really, really high numbers. So there's a lot of them. But when you're in forests that aren't very healthy, they disappear. So if there's been a forest fire or if humans are building buildings and messing the forest up, the scorpions disappear. So they're a really good indication of whether a forest is a healthy forest or whether a forest is an unhealthy forest for the animals and plants living there.
There's a canary in a coal mine and there's a scorpion in a forest. I've never heard that before as an indicator species. That's very cool. Do you have him? Are we able to see yet? Or is he's hiding on the computer somewhere?
It's hiding on my computer somewhere. I thought I had a picture of one, but I didn't. But I do have one right here. Let's take
Perfect. I'm excited now. I'm very vested. That fight with the
share my screen. Here's the picture. So there it is right there. That is Euroctonus mordax, the Western Forest Scorpion. And this was a picture actually taken by a high school student that lives here in California, named Prakrit Jain, who's been studying those since he was in middle school for his science fair project.
Right. We like to highlight, we do a program called Backyard Bio at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, where kids go out and take pictures of wildlife and explore. And I mean, that's so cool that you're highlighting a picture from someone who just went out and, you know, has a passion for this like you do. That's awesome. Guys, let's keep this going. I think we have 40 minutes of Zoom, so we're going to try and get as many questions in as we can. Miss Stam's class joining us in Calgary. If you guys want to come on in. Oh, sorry, I just accidentally muted you. Come on back in. There we go. Perfect. Miss Stam, you should be good to go in a second, in theory. Maybe
yeah, I think we're good. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Perfect. Isaac.
Tell the difference between a male and female scorpion.
Yeah.
That's a great question. How do you tell the difference between a male and a female scorpion? Well, it depends on which species of scorpion you're looking at. So in almost all scorpions, the females are bigger. So that's your first clue, is that it's a female, is that it's bigger. And so when males court females, it's always kind of a dangerous affair because scorpions are cannibals, so they will eat each other. And so when the male approaches the female, he's risking his life because she's bigger than him, so she can eat him. Another really good clue is that male scorpions tend to have longer tails. So their tails are much longer than the females, and their bodies are not as round. So they usually have the sides of their body are parallel lines, so lines that run directly side by side, whereas the females tend to be more of a convex shape. So they kind of look a little more circular.
Cool. I love that. How neat. And the courtship ritual, I've never seen, your videos were perfect. Like that was the best use of video in a program in ages. So thank you for all that. Let's head to BC. We've been talking about it a little bit as our Canadian home for scorpions. So Kelowna, Mr. Miller's class, grade 7s. If you guys want to come on in, you should be good to go. There you go.
Wait, what was the scorpion that killed all the people in Egypt?
Yes. Yeah, the scorpion that killed people in Egypt. That was actually the last scorpion that I had up on the screen when I showed my thanks slide. So there are about 25 scorpions in the world that are capable of killing humans. 25 species. So remember, I told you there's about 2,400 species that we've documented with science so far. But there's only about 25. So not very many of them are capable of killing humans. But unfortunately, one of the things that we find is that the scorpions that are capable of killing humans are oftentimes really happy with human environments, like the environments that we build. They tend to be what we call errant scorpions. And what that means is that they're scorpions that wander around instead of building a burrow that they live in all the time. They just wander around and look for little crevices to hide in. The other thing that's really great about human houses is that they're full of prey. They got cockroaches, they've got crickets, and after a really, really big rain, like the one that just happened in Egypt, a huge flood, there's lots of insects that are coming out and about because it's really good conditions for insects. And so in addition to the scorpions getting washed out of the drains, because there was a big, huge rain, there's also lots of prey suddenly available. And so there's more scorpions out and about than there would normally be that are coming into contact with humans. So they're not out to attack the humans. It just happens to be that the conditions are great for scorpions and humans are coming into conflict with them.
I'm really happy you mentioned that last bit. We get so many questions when it comes to predatory animals or things that people think of as dangerous. And pretty much, unless you go swimming with Nile crocodiles or walk up to a polar bear, nothing's really out to get people. It's just that we end up in a situation where, it's either an accident or a mistake or people not respecting an animal in a lot of cases. I'm curious, I hope you can qualify a query that I've had or heard in the past. The bigger scorpions, because they've got those huge pincers. So if you're walking around, you get stung by a scorpion, you're like, is this going to kill me or is it just going to really hurt? If you have a big meaty scorpion, is it a general rule that they're not as venomous because they have those huge pincers, or is that just completely wrong?
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good rule of thumb, is like, it's sort of like the pincher to tail ratio. So if they've got big pinchers and not a very big tail, like the tail's no longer than the length of the body, then it's a good sign that they're not very dangerous to humans. But if they've got really skinny pinchers and a pretty long or like really meaty tail, then they're probably more dangerous because they're mostly using their venom for defense and for capturing prey. And I think you brought up a good point about them not being out to get us. And actually, like, they only ever use venom as a last resort, if they feel like they're defending their lives. And the main reason for that is that scorpions can't just continually produce venom. So every time they use up their venom stock, they can't eat for 48 hours. So they're not able to use venom again for 48 hours. And so they don't want to use the venom. They want to save their venom because they'd rather use that to capture their food than to defend themselves if they're able to.
I only ever heard that for snakes. It's sort of the dry bites or venomous species. That's very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's head to Miss Benoit's class. We got time for 2 more questions with our limited Zoom excitement today. But Good Shepherd School 2-3s, if you guys want to come in, you should just unmute your mic and you're good to go.
Hi, sorry we came in late. We were still in the other meeting for a bit.
Okay. Sorry for the trouble, guys, but share away. We'd love to hear your question. How fast can they run, Lauren?
How fast can scorpions run? Not very fast. So, I think that probably like the max speed for a scorpion is just maybe a few meters an hour. Whereas we can walk at like several miles an hour. So they're not very fast, and they can't jump, and they can't like crawl up glossy things like some other animals. So they're mostly just like happy hanging out on the ground, or maybe walking up like really rough bark and trees and vegetation, things like that.
I must say, even though you made a very compelling case for the fact that we don't need to worry about scorpions, I am glad to hear they can't jump. That would be mildly alarming.
It would be.
Let's head to the May family. You guys are joining us for the first time. This is so exciting in Meaford. So if you want to unmute your mic, you are good to go. And we'll wrap up from there.
Do scorpions hibernate?
Ooh, nice question.
That's a great question. Do scorpions hibernate? So hibernate is something that happens typically when it's cold, and scorpions and animals sort of shut down their body systems and go into a dormant state where they're not really asleep or not really awake for a while. And scorpions do hibernate. They go into a state called ecdysis, which is a state of sort of suspended animation, like it's almost like you press pause on their life. Scorpions have the lowest metabolic rate of any living animal. And so they can go into a state of hibernation either when it's cold or when the conditions are really, really bad. So for example, if there was a drought for a really long period of time and they couldn't find food and they couldn't find water, they could go into a state of dormancy or hibernation. So yes, scorpions do hibernate.
Very, very cool. That's What's the ecdysis? How do you spell it?
Ecdysis. It's ECTDYSIS, I think. Ecdysis.
Okay, very cool. So I hope our classes get the chance to check that out after. I've never heard that about scorpions before. Lauren, I know we could go all day. Time flies and you're having fun. We are getting close to the end of the broadcast. And so I'm curious, is there a last message for our students joining today? You did such a good, compelling job telling the story of Scorpions to everybody. Is there something you want them to all go home with before we wrap up with a big farewell with everybody?
Yeah, so what I want you to go home with is the knowledge that we don't know almost anything about scorpions. So I just spent 40 minutes telling you what I know about scorpions, but the reality is we know almost nothing. We still discover dozens of new species every single year all over the world. I'm working with 2 high school boys. In fact, one of the boys that took that picture I showed earlier just discovered 2 new species of scorpions right here in California. And so we have so much work left to do to understand life on Earth, including scorpion life on Earth. We don't know for most of the species how long they live, what they eat, how they reproduce, how many babies they have, all of the things that we might think is basic information that we know about everything on Earth right now. So go out, make observations. You can use apps like Seek to record those observations, and they become scientific grade observations that scientists like me can use. And I use that kind of information all the time. So go out and explore your world because there's so much left to learn.
You are one of the first scientists to actively mention that you use Seek personally. That's so awesome. Seek is the best. We, again, use this for backyard bio. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. SEEK for anyone who wants to check that out. The coolest app. Doesn't track your location data if you're a class, you're worried about that sort of thing. Really, really fun program. Get out and do that today. And what a nice call to action for all our students that there's so many things left to explore. I know it's true that we are the bare bones of knowledge, but you certainly shared a lot of really, really cool stuff today. And so, Lauren, what an absolute pleasure. What we do to end every broadcast, this is your first one with us. If all our classes want to unmute your mics and join me in saying a big thank you and farewell, Mr. Shattuck, Miss Benoit, Miss Stam, the May family, Miss Taylor, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.